How's it going, everyone? Today we're going to be talking about One Piece 1049. We finally got that Kaido flashback we were all looking forward to, and we're going to talk about it here today. But before we do, make sure to like and subscribe for more One Piece content from me. And with that being said, let's get into the video. So this was a really good chapter in my eyes. Now, I will say there's one thing I was kind of like, oh, was Oda playing us again? And it's quite fun when Oda plays with us a little bit. But I think he was trolling further because we didn't see the Oda box, and I'll talk about that. I'm actually going to skip straight to that before we talk about the flashback. Kaido is seemingly defeated in this chapter. If we go down here, right, he's seemingly defeated by Luffy's big ass punch, right? Well, actually, if we want to be semantic, he wasn't defeated by the big ass punch. Luffy did the big ass punch, and then he went back and during the massive punch, he used his other arm to swing back and get a nice hit in on Kaido to finish him off. So if you want to be technical, he wasn't trolling, but it just feels like he's already said before that Kaido would not be finished off by a massive punch, and he could have been trolling, but then he could have known he was going to do something like this, and then I just don't feel like. I will say, as someone who was watching the anime for the most part when catching up, it could just be because there's no music and voice acting, it doesn't feel as climactic, but it just doesn't feel like the climax of the major fight of the arc, you know what I mean? It doesn't feel like the end. Now, we could easily get the Oda box at the start of the next chapter, and at that point, because I'm well aware that it could just be I'm not used to climactic battles finishing in a chapter and not being able to watch or read the next chapter immediately after to keep that high going. So it could just be that. It could just be why it isn't hitting as hard. Maybe once I reread it with like 3 chapters afterwards, it might hit a lot harder because I have the build up and I have probably the music playing in the background when I'm. So it'd be something maybe it will be better for me once in hindsight. But it just didn't feel like that climactic finish, you know what I mean? For the fight, I feel like there is something left. We did have a Momonosuke be able to summon the fire clouds, but that kind of felt a bit out of nowhere. Well, obviously he was trying to do it, but he didn't even move the island. He just stopped it because he was supposed to move the island before the punch. So Kaido went through the island anyway. So that was solved, and he just went through the fucking island, made a big ass hole. So he did keep Onigashima safe. So we are gonna get the epilogue of the arc now, or Act 4 or whatever. I don't think that's going to happen anymore. But the defeat. I'm not dissatisfied with it. It's the first major defeat in the manga that I've witnessed without it being in the anime. So I don't know. It felt different to what I was expecting. Maybe that's just it. I will say though, we got the Kaido flashback we were looking for this chapter, which I was really, really happy about, to be honest. I liked the bits that we got. We were told that he was originally fighting as a soldier for the island of Vodka, yeah. The island of Vodka. And basically what happens is they can't control him. He's more aggressive towards the world nobles, and then his island, in order to get into the Reverie, turn him into a Navy enlistment, and he escapes, and that's how he becomes a pirate. Gets a $70 million berry bounty on his head at the beginning of the series at age 10. Like, what the fuck, man? That is some manly ass shit. Fair play, Kaido. And we see him joining Rocks, which we're going to talk about that, because that is fascinating to me. If we go back up here, because that silhouette and that silhouette there, it looks like, if you look carefully enough, it looks like a straw hat on that guy's head. The guy who's talking to Kaido in this, it's like, Kaido, come quick, it's important, we're going to God Valley. That looks like a straw hat. And actually I was sitting here thinking, what could it be? Because originally I was like, was Roger on the Rocks crew? Did Rocks have the straw hat before? But none of it lined up to me in terms of the canon timeline. But then I realized, wait a minute, there's a straw hat in Marijois. So what if Rocksteady Zebek had the straw hat from Marijois? Huh? And that's how they got their hands on it when they defeated Rocks at God Valley, and Garp got it and brought it to the Celestial Dragons. And maybe their reaction to it was what made Garp hate them, or maybe what happened on God Valley in general. Because I know there's a big theory going around at the moment that Shanks is the celestial dragon from God Valley, or is from God Valley. Maybe they left the kid to die, and that's what Garp isn't fond of, and maybe that's why he respects Roger, because Roger took him in. There's a lot of things we could see here, and it would make sense because we all know Garp is very much a parental figure. He took in 3 boys that he probably had no responsibility to besides Luffy. So it is quite. There's a lot of things we can glean from this, but I think I'm sticking with the idea that that's the Straw Hat from Marijois, if there is a Straw Hat. But the question is that Roger or not Roger? Sorry, is that Rox or is that someone else? Because the normal answer would be, okay, that's obviously Rox. Now, but let's go back for a bit, right? Let's just go back and play devil's advocate here and talk about if Rox or Roger was on the Rox Pirates for some reason. So we know him and Rayleigh, when he meets Rayleigh, he joins like Rayleigh and him join to become first mate and captain and all this. But we also know that his journey was like, I think it was 13 years before he got to the Lodestar, so it was a lot longer of a journey. So he could have spent years with just him and Rayleigh before they found a new crewmate. And we know he was a master of hockey, so he could have been a lot more adept and a lot more skilled than Luffy was at the beginning of the story. So we could see a possibility where early Roger and Rayleigh lose in a Davy back fight to Rox, and then they join the Rox Pirates temporarily. And then what happens after that is that they backstab him after the major God Valley incident, and that's how him and Whitebeard become friends, because they already knew each other from the Rox Pirates, and then they agreed with each other's morals at the God Valley. So it's very interesting. I could see that happening, and that's why he both respects and hates both those characters, why Kaido respects and hates both of them. Now, that's just playing devil's advocate. I don't believe in that. I'm more of the person who believes in the idea that that's the Straw Hat from Marijois. I think that is a fascinating idea, and I love it. Oh, man. Because that flashback, when we get that flashback. Because if, for those who haven't read it, now I don't know why you're watching this if you haven't read it, but they kind of cut off at all the good moments. Like, Kaido's going to be told something by one of the old ladies in his flashback. It cuts forward to when he's talking to King. Then, when they're talking about how Kaido did in the Navy, they flash forward to when he escaped. And when they're talking about God Valley, they flash forward to when he's talking about Yamato. So they flash forward to when you get to all the juicy bits. So we just get to see, basically this flashback was to get to see the key events in Kaido's life, but kind of an abridged version, because we're going to get to see more of it later on, because Kaido is a lot more of an important character than we initially thought, because he's involved in God Valley, he's involved with the Celestial Dragon somehow, through his Navy enlistment. He's obviously a ogre, as the official release calls it, or an Oni if you want to go that way. I kind of feel like ogre gives him a real Shrek vibe. You know what, Shrek in One Piece, not too bad, not too bad. Not too bad, so I'm not going to complain. The ogre of One Piece. You know what I mean? So I'm not going to complain there. But it's quite an interesting. We don't actually get to find out why he's interested in Wano, which I'm a bit bothered by, to be honest. I would have liked to figure that out, but again, that's probably going to be related to God Valley, so. We do find out, though, interestingly enough, that, as I said earlier, Kaido was enlisted in the Navy. Now, it does flash forward to him escaping. But do you think he served for a little while before he escaped? That is the question, and I'm quite interested about that. I want to know. Because I know he escaped quite early, because he still had that 10-year-old face when he got the bounty poster. But I want to know if he served at all. That'd be very interesting to find out. Kaido flashback, for as actually barren as it might have been compared to how I was, what I was kind of looking for, it was very interesting. And you could see why they left it at the places they did, because it's very important to the future of One Piece and the story's future, so we're going to see that later on down the line. So it might make Kaido a relatively dissatisfying villain in the short term, but when we get more in later arcs and maybe even later on in Wano, when we read the Road Poneglyph and all that stuff. But at the moment, I will say, I think Doflamingo in the fan base will still be slightly higher. I think so anyway. Personally, I think Kaido's my favorite just because even though he's not as much of a character as Doflamingo in terms of having a full backstory, his character, I like his character a lot. I like the dragon powers. I like the whole Wano, his involvement in Wano. I like everything about him. So I'm kind of, Kaido personally for me is higher than Doflamingo, but objectively, Doflamingo is still probably better at the minute. Personally, I think. If we're speaking personally, I believe Kaido. Objectively, I'd say Doflamingo, but that's up to your opinion. I have a very skewed villain list. I might talk about that one day, but I'll just say Enel is a lot higher than many people might put him. I really like Enel for his powers and stuff like that, and his kind of whole vibe. Same reason I like Kaido, really. But I feel like Kaido is going to be one of the best villains in retrospect after we have all the information from whenever we go and see Vegapunk and whenever we get to Elbath and get all the flashbacks from God Valley. You know, we're going to love Kaido in retrospect, not during the arc. Everyone loves him at the minute, but I don't think we got the flashback to make everyone love Kaido. I feel like that is going to be later on when we get more context from the major events, and then we figure out where Kaido's placement was in them thanks to this flashback. I will say, personally, that it was a bit weird when they ended the fight. One thing, though, I did find weird at the end of the chapter was the statement that he makes. He goes, Straw Hat, what kind of world do you want to make? And I felt that was weird because it was stated earlier on in the chapter, or earlier on in the arc, that Kaido believes you don't need a justification to fight. So it was weird that I know we got it so it could feel more climactic with Luffy saying something. He's like, I want to make sure my friends can eat and you get out of this country, right? Obviously, that kind of vibe. And so Luffy can do a big fucking punch in it. And that, you know, it was like, honestly probably to appease the anime and make it feel more climactic. But I think it does hurt his character a slight bit. But the vast majority of this chapter was fantastic. And it's just theory bait that we could talk about for hours. Unfortunately, there's a break next week, but what can you do? Just is how it is, and we can stew on what we saw this chapter, and it was very good. Onigashima seems safe. I wasn't sure, because at the end it looked like Onigashima was on the ground. So I think it should be in the colored panels. Yeah, if I look at the colored panels here, Onigashima is on the ground now, and Momonosuke is knocked out as well as Kaido. I think now we're at the end of Wano a lot sooner than I thought we'd be. So I think that August 6th end date that I thought was over last chapter might actually be coming through, and I'm actually quite excited. But look, let's look at Wano objectively here for a minute, because if this is going to be the end of Wano, probably in and about within the next like 5-7 chapters. It's been amazing. All right. I caught up with Wano at like chapter 999, so right before chapter 1000, or probably 998 or something like that. I can't remember exactly what. It was the chapter before the Ace flashback, so whenever that was. It was December 20th, I think it was, 2020. December 20th, 2020 was the day I caught up, because it was on my old Twitter account. And it's been a mad ride. I will say I did start weekly in the big climax of the arc, so I don't get to experience the slow starts, because I know a lot of people aren't happy with Wano because of the beginning. Now, as someone who watched it, it isn't that bad. It isn't that bad. It didn't bother me in the slightest. Really cool style. I read through it again, and it was really enjoyable. I will say I did miss the extra bits with Zoro and Ebisu, but what you gonna do? Wano's been one of the best arcs in the series so far. I've really enjoyed it. I'd have to rewatch Whole Cake to see if it goes above Whole Cake, because Whole Cake is my favorite arc in the series so far. So I'd have to rewatch Whole Cake and reaffirm my opinions on it. But Wano is definitely in my top 5 at the very least currently. Wano is, and Act 3 on its own is probably my favorite. Act 3 on its own is probably one of my favorite parts of One Piece. At least top 2. I think if we take Onigashima as an arc, and we don't even include the Oden flashback, let's say we just take Onigashima as an arc for a second, and I guess the build-up, it's probably up there. But I feel like as a whole, it's hard to say, because I do love it as a whole. But I always feel weird putting the latest arc at number one, and it just wouldn't feel right until I have time to rewatch the whole thing again and reread the whole thing again, and really give a proper opinion on it. But I have to say, Oda's done a fantastic job with Wano so far, and I can't wait to see what happens now with the wind down of the arc, and I'm really looking forward to it. I don't know about you, but what a fantastic chapter, and we don't know if he's down there. We don't know if Kaido's down or not yet because he has the Oda box that hasn't shown up yet, unfortunately. But my god, the whatever volume this appears in, that cover is going to be fucking gorgeous, and I can't wait to pick that one up. With that being said, tell me what you guys thought about the chapter in the comments below, and I'll see you guys later. Yeah, goodbye.